The cold hum of the space station reverberated in my ears as I crouched behind the flickering control panel of the old Sentinel-3 surveillance pod. The crimson lights of the dashboard fighting for dominance with darkness. I could feel beads of sweat trickle down my spine, an ironic sensation in this frigid vacuum of space. Time was running out. If Admiral Saren discovered my presence, it would not just be my head on the line. It would signal the end of the rebellion as we knew it. Through the translucent viewport, I strained to see the galaxy stretching infinitely before me. The vibrant swirls of the nebulas, painted in hues of cerulean and scarlet, felt like an artist's dream. Yet beauty was the side effect of our desperation. Above, the current of cosmic winds continued whispering secrets of war and betrayal, a symphony I could no longer ignore. I was no longer a passive observer of this silent revolution. I was woven into its fabric, down to the very last thread. "Juno," a voice crackled through the comms, sharp and familiar. "Are you in position?" It was my sister's voice, trembling with the tension threaded through the air. "Yeah, but the data lock is tougher than I thought." I clenched my fist, a response to Dop's uninvited worry creeping in. "It might take another minute. Do you think it's worth it?" She hesitated, and I could almost feel her gaze boring into me, dissecting my decision to go rogue like some kind of mantle. "Are they really planning to launch tomorrow? What if?" I cut her off. "What ifs don't matter, Daria. If we don't get the data showing the Admiral's plans for the Zelthian colony, we might as well turn in our badges." I could almost hear her inner conflict, manifesting in the silence between us. "We've been through enough. Survived enough to know that sanguine hopes can splinter easily beneath pressure. More than once, I had watched our parents choose safety over rebellion when the Syndicate tightened their iron grip. But I was no longer willing to stand idly, painting futures with complacency. Not while I still had blood boiling with every heartbeat for freedom. A warning siren screamed through the station, jolting me upright. I braced myself against the panel. The Admiral's enforcers were closing in, likely scanning for rogue frequencies. "I have to go," I whispered harshly, anxious energy rushing through my veins. I glanced down at the console, a hodgepodge of wires and broken screens. The data lock was barely responding. My fingers danced over the interface, trying to align programs with the old hardware. Images flashed, images of ravenous ships mocked for conquest, coordinates that would decimate everything we had fought to rebuild. A cold lump settled in my stomach. I had to make this work. "Juno," Daria's voice pierced into my mind again, desperate and worried. "The patrol drones are on high alert. You need to." Just then, the pod's door rattled. I stopped breathing, heart hammering against my ribcage, the panic crunching through my blood like glass. "Open up. We know you're in there." A gruff voice thundered on the other side, resonant with authority and malice. "Saren," I hissed, throat tightening. This wasn't just any patrol. This was Chief Admiral Saren himself. My insatiable desire for the truth had nudged me into dangerous territory that had swallowed far better men and women whole. I banged my hand against the console, scrambling to shut down the visual feeds and wipe my tracks. My throat felt tight with fear, an instinct screaming at me to run, but there was far too much at stake to turn back now. I dived into the interface, praying for the window I needed. "Juno, come on, you are out of time." Daria's voice crackled, panic rising. The door slammed against the wall, splintering into a frantic swirl of metal as a squad of enforcers stormed in, their eyes flaring with disbelief. I clutched what I need, a glimmer of data showing the Zelthian colonies tethering on the edge of annihilation, and linked it with a coded transmitter as the data began to upload to the rebellion. My desperation fueled the process. "Stop right there," Saren boomed, stepping across the threshold, clad in his gleaming Armada uniform, unreadable as the stars outside. "You think you can escape justice, traitor." "Justice?" I shot back, my voice steadying, ice lacing the edges. "Justice is blind, Admiral. Do you even think you'll be able to navigate the storm you've unleashed?" his lips twisted into a contemptuous smirk, eyes as sharp as the blades on his uniform. "You will pay for this insurrection with your life, Juno. That much I can promise. But I hadn't come this far to back down." The data download was racing, a throbbing pulse at my fingertips, only a fraction left. My gaze darted fiercely to Daria's portrait in my mind. How many times had she begged me to stay safe, to retreat from the chaos? "Don't move," one of the enforcers ordered, raising the pulse rifle he clutched with swollen fingers. A cascade of thoughts rushed through my mind, ways to buy time, distractions to create a window of escape. But it all reduced back down to one stark truth: a chance to send the message about the impending assault on the Zelthian colony would save thousands, and I couldn't let it slip away. I inhaled sharply, grasping the remote detonator hidden in my pocket, barely remembering when I had tucked it in as we prepped like children against shadows, forever haunted by our parents' choices. "Light a fire, Juno," I had promised myself. I grinned defiantly back at Saren. With a quick thrust of my hand, I pressed the detonator. An explosion cracked outside the pod, ripping the air as it sent tremors rattling through the hull. The enforcers staggered back, caught off guard amid blaring alarms. And now, I screamed over the chaos, pulling the last of the day, the transmission to completion, then bolting toward the exit. I didn't look back as I charged out into the dim hallways of the station, knowing only that I had mere breath to take my next step. Out there, deep in the abyss of space, change awaited, radiant with uncertainty and hope. And I'd be damned if I let it drown while the Admiral and his enforcers hunted me down. Corridors of the Sentinel-3 space station loomed like a maze, each corner a potential trap as I sprinted through the dimly lit expanse. My heart raced, matching the echoing thud of boots on the metal deck, faintly reverberating behind me. Saren's enforcers were relentless. The air was infused with the acrid scent of burning insulation. Sparks cascaded like stars from the walls, remnants of the explosion still wreaking havoc. "Daria, are you still with me?" I shouted into my comms, trying to keep my voice steady amid the chaos. Static crackled back, and fear coiled in my gut. She had to be safe. "Juno, I'm in the launch bay." Daria's voice finally broke through, breathless. "Hurry." Darting left, I followed the illuminated emergency exits, my mind racing to formulate my next move. I had no weapon, no plan beyond the instinctual need to reach my sister. Every step felt heavy, weighted with the knowledge that their victory over me would inch them closer to complete domination. "Hold tight, I'm coming," I gasped, my pulse pounding in my ears. As I made my way through sprawling rooms filled with forgotten technology and flickering holo displays, a deep rumble reverberated from above, sending a fresh wave of dread crashing over me. The station felt alive, tremors like whispers of a vengeful beast knowing it was about to die. The Sentinel-3 was old, its systems faltering, echoing the distress of our cause. When I rounded the final corner into the launch bay, I had not realized how close we were to the bowels of the station. The steel structure rose up before me, exposed and raw, shelves lined with tools and old space frames. The bay pulsed with a desperate energy as perilous as the atmosphere outside. "Daria," I shouted again, and my voice bounced off the walls like a panic-stricken ghost. The sight that greeted me tore the breath from my lungs. My sister leaned against an ancient launch pod, nervously fiddling with a control panel draped in holographic displays that blinked like hearts in a medical bay. "They are coming, Juno, I can hear them." Daria looked up, eyes brimming with a mix of fear and determination. My heart swelled at the sight of her, healthy and fierce even in the face of chaos. We were stronger together. "I got the data. We can send it from that pod." I moved to her side, gestures frenetic as I pointed to the interface. "Look, I'm locked in. All we need to do is confirm the connection and send it out to the rebellion." "Can I?" Daria's hands trembled, uncertainty flaring in her eyes. I caught her chin with my fingers, forcing her to meet my gaze. "You can. Will by synced, sister. You've trained for this." A fear flashed within me. The guilt of dragging her into this mayhem tightened a vice around my chest, but I pushed it aside. Together, we were unbreakable. She nodded, and our connection surged with renewed strength. I turned to access the systems while she worked on the interface. I just need to override the security protocols before they breach the entrance. A loud bang echoed from the entrance of the launch bay, and I felt my heart drop. The enforcers were more determined than I'd imagined. Adrenaline surged, urging my fingers to move faster. My tremors transformed into a blistering focus as I hacked into the display, each command crackling with urgency. 60 seconds, Juno, Daria cried. We need to hurry. Almost there. Streams of code flickered across my vision, each pulse a revelation cutting through the confusion. I had nearly set the parameters when alarms began blaring relentlessly, announcing the breach that had finally come. In one last gasp, I pressed the command, locking the data into the transmission relay and sealing the critical dot of connection. Our people, the Zelthian colonies, maybe even those in the Syndicate right now, could see what Saren had been plotting. Done. Sending. Move, 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 Daria shouted, her voice a siren urging me forward. I felt the sudden rush of air as the bay doors began to buckle under the pressure of the hostile forces outside. I turned back to see the enforcers storming into the bay, pulse rifles priming. My instincts screamed to run, but my gaze caught time on Daria. Are you inside? Done. She hollered, and a moment later, I could see the transmission completing on the displays. An exhale of relief slipped through me, but it was far too soon. Get down, I yelled, pushing away from the console and tackling Daria to the ground, just as bursts of energy lit the air behind us. The shots ricocheted off the wall, showering us in sparks. Stay down. I wrapped my arm around her, using my body as a shield as the chaos continued to echo around us. We need to split. Garrick's old cry rang in my ears, the aching reminder of the sacrifices that incited rebellion. Daria nodded, determination flooding her eyes as she pointed toward the empty side of the bay where the decommissioned launch frames were suspended. We can use them to climb out, you know, I snapped, dragging her close. We need to stay together. That is too dangerous. I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself, she retorted, more fierce than I had ever seen her. When will you ever let me choose? I'm coming with you. It struck me in that moment, Daria was not a naive sister. She had always been my ally, refusing to cower in the blast of danger. I could feel the tension crackling between us like a live wire, a storm about to burst. Fine, but only if you follow my lead. With renewed purpose, we darted toward the evacuation routes built into the frame. Carefully navigating the shadows, we made our way to the launch pods that lined the far wall. I swiped my hand across the nearest control panel, grimacing as the screen brought up systems diagnostics flashing red, an old relic of a time long lost. This one is still active. I yanked open the hatch, and we clambered inside, strapping ourselves into the cold metal seats. But we're not safe yet, Daria shouted as we heard footsteps approaching rapidly. The air around us felt electric. The pressure in the pod began to build, a countdown ticking ominously down as we watched the primary systems flare to life. I could feel the intensity of something approaching clarity. Our connection had forged us into weapons themselves. Just do it. Daria swiftly operated the controls, her fingers flying over the triggers. The bay doors struggled to stay secure against the sheer force building, and one single thought latched onto my mind: freedom. Engage launch protocol. I urged, adrenaline igniting my voice. Let's put some distance between us and that damned admiral. 3, 2, 1. Daria hit the trigger, and the pod jolted violently, thrusters blasting us free into the vast emptiness. We shot out like a comet, leaving the chaos of the Sentinel-3 behind us, at least for the moment. As we sped through the void, hoarse gasps escaped me. The silence settled heavy and struck me with an unexpected clarity, my mind racing to unpackage the ferocity of our escape. Where to now? Daria's breath was quick, her body still coiled with tension. Anywhere but here, I said, fingers dancing over the navigation controls as I sought a route away from the Syndicate's claws. Head toward the asteroid fields. We'll hide among the debris. The silence of space enveloped us like a thick blanket. but I couldn't shake the images of Saren and his enforcers that flashed behind my eyelids, resilient threats simmering in the background. The rebellion had drawn them out into the light, and the dangerous tides of war were rising around us. Juno, what if we failed? Daria's voice trembled. What if they catch up? I turned to her, the gravity of our reality snapping sharper now. We will not fail. We have to believe in ourselves and in the people willing to join our cause. Those words felt like a shaky promise, but needed to be made. She had faced withstanding monsters alongside me all this time. Together we could meet whatever came next. Right. Daria squared her shoulders, determination igniting her eyes again. We need to contact Garrick, regroup, and strategize. This may have just been our first skirmish. As we entered the rough edge of the asteroid fields, we looked out into the starlit chaos around us, an intricate dance of shapes and shadows, each twinkle a reminder of the lives we fought to protect. The silence was both threatening and comforting, a lull before another storm. Let's send the transmission, I said, and with that, we linked our comms to Garrick's channel. He'll know what to do next. Suddenly, it hit me like a wave as I scrolled through the ship's status. Survivors, fragments of weary voices scattered like debris across the cosmos. Our journey wasn't solely personal any longer. It was woven into the very fabric of interstellar hope. Just as I established the connection, another thought flickered through my mind. Saren would not stop until he crushed the resistance completely. That fact gnawed at the edges of my resolve. Saren will not stop at anything until we are all gone, Daria. I swallowed against the heaviness in my heart, swallowing the tremendous weight that soon crested on the horizon. Then we'll need a plan to strike back. One that ensures whatever future we have is built on victories, not fear. She replied, and I felt the pull of unity knitting between us. As our vessel glided seamlessly into the chaos of the asteroid fields, I sensed the threads of uncertainty transforming into momentum. The awareness that every struggle, every sacrifice, would feed into an unstoppable force of change, magenta and gold stretching through the cosmos like a glorious dawn. Garrick's voice crackled alive through the comms, filled with warmth only a true I could imbue. Juno, Daria, you made it. We did. At least for now. I heard Daria answering, the tension easing in her voice. And in that moment, cloaked by rock and shadow, our rebellion began to take plunge, weaving threads into the fabric of our shared destiny, no longer just sisters caught in the storm, but warriors ready to forge their own light against the encroaching darkness. Pulsating thrill of the asteroid fields enveloped our small pod as we floated among the shifting masses of rock and mineral with cautious hope. Elements of danger hung in the air, just as uncertainty draped over our shoulders like a shroud. I could feel the weight of our decision pressing at my temples, each heartbeat reminding me of the stakes we'd willingly set into motion. Daria, I said, my voice steadying as I navigated the swirls of debris, what do we know about the Admiral's forces? Are there any updates from Garrick? Her fingers danced over the control panel, activating communication feeds as she bit her lip in concentration. The atmosphere hung heavy as I watched her eyes flicker through the information flashing across the screens. And not much yet. He said they have managed to secure the communications network, but they are on high alert. Morgana's forces poised to strike if we make ourselves visible. And of course they are, I muttered, frustration bubbling like lava beneath the surface. Saren's ability to manipulate the system was as legendary as his ruthlessness. He wouldn't let our slip. Away be the end of his control. You know, Daria began, lifting her gaze back to mine, we could use this to our advantage. If they're busy searching for us, it gives us time to regroup. Maybe even a chance to strike a blow. She was right. An opportunity lay within our grasp, lurking behind the shadows, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Let's get in touch with Garrick properly. He's an expert at laying low. I could see the fire igniting in her eyes, that familiar glimmer of determination she always carried. My sister was ready to up the stakes. The comms chirped to life, Garrick's voice crackling through the static as he answered our call. Were you two still breathing? The laughter held a bittersweet thread, full of camaraderie and unspoken worries. Just barely, Daria shot back, chuckling lightly, and the mood elevated. What's the status? I pressed, determination clutching my heart in a fist. 40% of our fighters managed to stay under the radar barely. We've lost contact with a good number of people. His voice faltered, the weight of loss palpable. I clenched my fists. People like us. People who fought for our futures rather than let the syndicate dictate our choices. We need a strategic approach, I stated. Fading into the background is only half the battle. We still need to build our forces. If Saren's forces are busy chasing shadows, we can use that to slip in behind and reclaim what he's lost. You think we can strike back, get our people to work as a cohesive unit again? Garrick's tone was skeptical but not dismissive, just cautious. If we take control of the communication lines, it might give us leverage, I replied. We could send a full signal across space, a beacon that could inspire rebellion from those waiting in the wings. That's a bold move, he said slowly, weighing the implications, but I like it. We'd need to infiltrate their secure network first. That means more than just a dash for it, I replied, realizing the depth of the plan. We would have to synchronize with our scattered allies, a dance of precision woven through chaos. I'll start rallying our forces. If Saren believes we're still tied down, it'll give you the window you need. While you gather our forces, I said, voice resolute, I'll work on the infiltration, and I'll stay here to provide support until you need me, Daria added quickly, unwilling to stand back. I smiled over her support, feeling the fire reflected in her gaze. We can do this together. The comms fell silent, anticipation building like a tense crescendo. In the vastness surrounding our ship, whispers of hope began to fracture the shadows. Every engagement, every conversation, every risk we took stood at the threshold of branching paths toward freedom. I knew Saren was nothing short of cunning, his pursuit would be relentless, but in the same breath we could become a threat. Focus on gathering intel, I instructed. We need to know every patrol route, every vulnerability in their defenses. From there, we can exploit every weakness. Daria's eyes glinted with fervor as she activated the ship's map display, regenerative lines illuminating possible points of attack. Maps of old alliances, routes traced across the stars, faded into the flow of the tension hanging thick between us. As I studied, the thrill of uncertainty transformed into relentless drive. We've got an ally in Executor Lathies, I suggested, desperation clawing at my thoughts. He has insights on the Syndicate's operations. He'd work with us. He still carries residual loyalty. Daria tilted her head, skepticism flaring. He knows what's at stake, I replied. He may even have reasons for revenge against Saren. The networks had been rife with conversations of distrust since Lathies had escaped under murky circumstances. Above all, the fragility of alliances wasn't lost on either of us. If he's willing to stand with us, we can use him to lure the Admiral into our web. Daria nodded, a decision forming quickly in her eyes. Then let's reach out before Saren knows we're still alive. As I punched in the coordinates toward Lathies' last known station, a reminder of his inherent cunning crept through the back of my mind. The familiar unease churned in my gut. Remember, if he hesitates, we'll hold our ground. Daria's voice was steady, a trusted anchor amid swirling doubts. Fastening my seatbelt, I steered the ship deeper into the asteroid field, weaving through cosmic shards that glinted in the dim starlight. The pulling silence buzzed thick with anticipation, and beneath the surface, the muted hum of rebellion flowed like a heartbeat ready to surge. The shadows began to rise when we arrived at Lathies' silent enclave. The forge was a weathered station clinging to the edge of the asteroid belt, a forsaken reminder of the trading routes abandoned amidst the uprising. Zoning in on the location, I felt the familiar burn of anxiety threading between us, a perilous invitation hidden within the gloom. But laced beneath this trepidation, I sensed an even greater yearning for alliance, that relentless determination to wrest control back from those who threatened our futures. This is it, I murmured, observing the dilapidated structures alight with sputtering energy fields. With a firm press of the console, the forge alerted us inside, the pale red of navigation lights casting shimmers like a beacon through the abyss. "Brace yourself," I warned, nails digging into the arms of the seat as I pulled through the narrow docking bay. Metal shifted, and with a heavy thud, our pod secured itself against the worn platform. Without hesitation, we stepped out into the solitude, the stillness welcoming against the chaos of our minds. But as the hatch swung open, I was taken aback by the sight that confronted us. The forge revealed a labyrinthine haven, crumbling walls wrapped around spaces replete with makeshift armaments and surveillance equipment. The scent of burnt transmission circuits saturated the air, a reverberation of memories tucked deep within a battle-stained history we had inherited. Streamers of light flickered above, painted with chaotic tapestries of forgotten alliances and echoes of those lost. "Are you sure about this?" Daria's voice softened as she trotted beside me, gripping my arm. "He might sell us out. If he does, we'll deal with it." I pressed forward, featuring resilience against the whispers lingering in the air. Despite all lies, the only real weakness was silence. Upon entering a corridor, shadowed forms flickered in acknowledgement as we approached a dimly lit room at the end. A lingering weariness nestled in the air before the figure stepped into view. A tall, statuesque man enveloped in shadows, flanked by two armed sentinels. "Lathais," I greeted, the coolness of my voice cutting through tension. "You look like you've seen better days." His lips curled into a sardonic smile, rolling his eyes at the jest. "And you look none the worse for wear, Juno. I hear you've been playing rebellion. We need to talk," I stated, presenting the severity of our visit. "The Admiral is plotting a massive operation of observables on the Zelthian colonies." Lathai's interest sharpened, tension rising to match the gravity of our words. "What makes you think I'd care to help, sweet girl?" Daria bristled at the taunt, but I remained calm, forcing the desires of vengeance to hide behind simmering purpose. "Because you know what's at stake, and you know we are your best chance to take down Saren." "And what would that cost me?" he mused, slowly pacing the distance between us. "Trust, perhaps." I stepped forward, swallowing the bitterness of desperation. "We're not just here to beg for your alliance. We're here to offer you power against an enemy that has betrayed you. Join us, and maybe you'll get a chance to avenge what's been lost." A carnal smirk broke across Lathai's face as he narrowed his eyes. "You want me to throw my lot in with a couple of fledglings? We may be fledglings, but we're turning that into something greater," Daria countered, stepping beside me, shoulders straightened in resolve. "And your mind knows a move across this board takes more than strategy. It invites opportunity." The silence thickened with uncertainty, shadows flickering, reflecting every doubt and redemption we'd been desperate to reclaim. But during that stillness, curiosity ignited in Lathai's expression. I could sense the pivot as I pulled my breath deeper, feeling the stakes fold back against our desires. "If you want my alliance," he said finally, "then prove you're worth investing in. Infiltrate the syndicate, expose their vulnerabilities. Show me the might behind your cause, prove it not just in words, and what if we fail? Then I'll watch as you ruin yourselves." Lathais answered coolly, suppressing the warmth of humor laced within his warning. "But you're correct. Failure is only one side of the coin." The challenge reverberated through us, both a pact and a test of will, and the weight of his judgment pressed like asteroids collapsing the already fractured landscape. "We'll do it," I replied, conviction infusing my voice. "We're not afraid to take on that risk." "Then we have an understanding," Lathais said, gesturing theatrically. "But hurry, the clock is ticking, and the syndicate will not rest until they've rooted out what they consider a weed. Once you begin, I'll be at your disposal." Turning swiftly, he pressed a button hidden in the wall beside him, revealing a concealed panel of encrypted data files. "Every scrap of intel I have collected from Saren's operations is yours. Study it, learn from it, and bring me results. Only then will you earn my loyalty." Armed with newfound knowledge, Daria and I started combing through the materials, pulling apart blueprints and schematics, piecing together plans as shadows blended, launching our rebellion deeper among the stars, waiting for our awakening. The coordinates glinted through the database, pointing to syndicate outposts, the threads connecting once. Separated fates. A feeling coursed through me, a recent surge of invigoration. "Well, look at this," Daria exclaimed, liquids of excitement spilling into her tone as she pointed to a sequence of operational fronts. These locations indicate supplies and combat routes leading back to Saren's main station, reporting to their masters. Law enforcement, supply lines, all of it woven the broader scheme. I got lost in my thoughts as the map transformed from complexity into clarity. This is our opportunity. If we can intercept, we could slow down their preparations, maybe even disrupt the supply chain. That's smart, Daria agreed, fingers racing against the displays. But we need to rally our forces first. I nodded, the gears clicking together. The time to create a momentum against Saren was nigh. Let's formulate a strategy. If we can create disarray in their ranks, it would give us cover, I said slowly, thinking out loud. Divide their resources. If we strike at the heart, we might just catch them entirely off guard. The path would be perilous. I could feel the weight of consequences resting upon our shoulders, teetering between leap and blunder. With Lathai's approval, we now embarked upon an unprecedented journey toward revolution. Gathering the fragments of our scattered alliance, forging connections, training the bold ones willing to rise under the cracked skin of reality. Together, we would wrap ourselves in tales woven from hardship and hope. But we'll hit the Syndicate's outposts first. I laid out the framework, eyes blazing with urgency. Then we will take their stronghold, forcing Saren's forces to spread thin. I looked at Daria, feeling that magnetic bond between us grow stronger every desperate step we took fueled further resilience. Then it's time we light this fire. As phrases flickered back and forth, shadows converged. The forge steadied its course within the reach of asteroids flowing like rivers, a monument to the dance of freedom against tyranny. United, we prepared to craft our own destiny, subtly weaving ties through spaces and plans that would soon echo against the night anarchy thrumming beneath it all, discord swelling toward a crescendo. And beneath the weight of their empire, suspended within the dotted void, we began to stretch our wings, poised to turn the tides destined for conflict into a beacon of rebellion, as we plunged into the heart of the darkness. Victory and surrender were mere threads woven into the network of longing for freedom. It was time we pulled them taut, for Saren was no longer the hunter. It was about to become the hunted. As dawn broke across the shrouded edges of space, we found ourselves in the heart of a nebulous storm, a fierce tapestry of light and dark swirling before us, the remnants of our hasty preparations hanging in the unseen balance. The echoes of our digital conference buzzed in my mind, the formations of our plans spiraling like stellar winds. Operation Eclipse was set into motion. A promise of shards and shadows, a calculated strike against the Syndicate and their iron-fisted grip. These data points are solid, I murmured, my fingers skimming over the holographic maps projected into the small chamber of our makeshift command base aboard the forge. Daria and Garrick paced nearby, their eyes flickering intently over the arrays of information we had gathered from Executor Lathai's intel. If we move swiftly, we can hit 3 supply routes and establish ourselves before Saren becomes aware. The room thrummed with an electric tension, the gravity of our mission pressing down heavier than before. 3 routes is ambitious, Juno, Garrick said, crossing his arms as he regarded the projected data. But if we spread our forces too thin, we risk losing everything to a single retaliatory strike. I could almost hear the gears in his mind churning, grinding against the stubborn fact of our fragile resources. Maybe we don't need to spread ourselves too thin, Daria interjected, excitement threading through her voice as she pointed at the holographic display. If we take strategic positions and focus on surveillance as we advance, we can anticipate their movements. Each ambush could be a calculated reduction of their capabilities, not just blind chaos. The insight sparked something in me, igniting a plan that glimmered like starlight in the void, You're right. If we only target their supply lines, we can diminish their assets without directly engaging their primary combat forces. That's key. We cannot afford a head-on war at this stage. Daria turned towards the monitors, her expression transformative as she found the scope of possibility within damage mitigation. If we can orchestrate those ambushes, we might even be able to recruit some of their unsatisfied forces, those who have been under Saren's thumb for too long. Discontent breeds treachery within his ranks. Garrick mused with a nod, eyes glinting with newfound determination. If we can expose his vulnerability to his own people, it may shift the power dynamic. With every plan, the exhilaration built, tantalizing the edges of our fear. Our rebellion was no longer an echo of distant whispers. It was gathering the cadence of a growing storm, one we were ready to unleash. "This is it, then," I said, resolution cutting through my voice like a knife. "We'll hit those points over the next 24 hours. Launching from different angles will keep Saren guessing and disrupt their ability to unify." I gestured toward Daria and Garrick, my heart racing with hope. "We can do this together, but we need to be sharp and ready for anything. There's no telling what might happen under the Syndicate's watch." With every passing tick of the clock, as we set the plan into motion, adrenaline pierced through the tension, clouding our every decision. Before we split into our separate teams, I took a moment, standing tall in the center of the command room, anchoring the fragile fragments of our alliance. Once we succeed, we'll regroup, share our intel, and formulate our next steps forward. Saren will have no idea what's hit him. 24 hours later, the forge felt alive with anticipatory energy coursing through its chambers. We sat around a makeshift table littered with old holopads, tactical devices, and hastily scrawled notes, each of us aware of the stakes at play. Splitting forces strategically across 3 key locations, we prepared for the overwhelming campaign that awaited us. Let's synchronize. I glanced at my portable terminal, fingers dancing across the controls to bring up our final operational brief. 3 regions flashed on the map before us. The Corvid Fracture Station, an aging outpost rife with supply crates. The Archer Supply Yard, a congested junction brimming with military resources. And finally, Desolation Falls, a treacherous mine where ore shipments flowed daily into Saren's shipyards. Each target housed secrets, unwritten allegiances, and weakened resolve among the men and women responsible for their defense. Garrick and I will cover the Corvid Fracture, Daria decided, her confidence shining through, solid as the unyielding stars. It will infiltrate from the rear and create a diversion while Juno heads towards Archer. "I've got your backs," I promised, reassuring them. Disrupting the electronic network at Archer will destabilize their supply distribution. If all goes according to plan, I'll draw their fire long enough to give you room to ram through the crates and cut their resources off from the core. And no one said the path to freedom would be easy. Garrick said lightly, the camaraderie tugging warmth through the chill of uncertainty. "Just remember, stay in contact. If something feels wrong, we pull out without hesitation." As we prepared, every moment hummed with unspoken tension. The potential for failure danced just as equally to the allure of success in the quiet corners of our minds. Daria's determination glowed like embers among ashes as she double-checked our gear, leaving no room for error. "Onward to glory, then," I said, a grin breaking across my lips despite the gravity of our operation. A chorus of murmurs accompanied us as we split into our separate teams, adrenaline forging a sense of camaraderie that steeled our resolve. I exited the forge, dread coiling in my stomach, but the determination throbbed in rhythmic pulses, promising change lay ahead. With a mere leap into the ship, the engines thrummed to life beneath me, vibrating with the hum of purpose. As the forge surged forward, the stars gathered into fractals glistening with hope. We were not merely fragments, we were fire, a fire searching for its kindling in the abyss. As I neared the Archer Supply Yard, intimate shadows twisted between the shadows of the towering crates strewn about. A wild expanse of opulent opportunity cloaked in danger. Stealthy, I directed the ship to hover silently above connected supply corridors, engines cutting to a whisper as I dialed in to overhear their communications through the sabotage signal I'd planted earlier. Damn it, no more reserves for the transport. Secure reinforcements at once. A voice crackled through my comms, and I could envision the frustrated syndicate officers pacing back and forth, debating their next move. A chink in their armor I needed to exploit. Perfect, I whispered under my breath, the goal crystallizing in my mind. The faulty supply line brimming with vulnerability was ready for the impending storm. Deploying now, I commanded, keying the stealth mode and slipping further into the heart of darkness. Shadows danced around me as I maneuvered my ship toward the primary supply corrals, the tension of waiting expelling heat from my skin. Let's see how they handle this. Suddenly, an explosion rattled the ground below. A series of muffled eruptions clawed me back to the reality, shattering my cloak of isolation as Daria's team surged through Corvid fracture, igniting chaos with swats of fire. Go, move! Well, I could almost picture her commanding officers issuing orders, but I couldn't dwell on that. Not yet. It was my time to act. Slowly, I kicked open the hatch of my ship and slinked out, blending into the shadows. The dim light flickered in and out, echoing the sound of chaos as sirens wailed, slicing through the fabric of the silence like blades through flesh. Hold this position. Secure it, we're losing control. A frantic officer shouted, and I sank deeper into the gloom, quietly edging closer to critical supply points. Making my way through twisted corridors filled with crates, I began to deactivate the energy grids binding the supply crates like strands of a cobweb. Each snip weakened their connections, each crate falling further into chaos. Stealth merged with the eager pulsing of purpose, the act of rebellion singing in my veins. Everything was working according to plan until the shimmering figure of a guard stepped into the flickering shadows. Panic surged. I ducked back against the wall, pulse roaring in my ears. What in the... He must have heard the reverberation. Secure this area. Cut down any intruders. His shout echoed, a frantic command signaling for backup from elsewhere. I turned on my heel, heart racing, knowing I had no time to waste. With every step propelled by the urgency within, I raced through corridors, the shadows wrapping like blankets around me as I angled toward the control room. A dual operation surged through me. I was both predator and prey in this chaotic ballet, riding waves of opportunity as I spurred open the control panel. Fingers flying across the console, I committed myself to disrupting their communications as the doors glided open, chaos erupting in my ears. The screen filled with red alerts and notifications, clipped voices garbled through the static. I synchronized with the disturbance sweeping through the supply lines, feeding on their fear like a ravenous beast. Ooh, we're losing it at Corvid. Deploy reinforcements. The frenetic energy formed a delicious cocktail amidst the cacophony. I grinned, knowing our efforts bore fruit. Daria and Garrick had drawn their attention, and now it was time to make the final blow. With palpable anticipation, I crafted a cybernetic worm, ready to spread through their vital systems like wildfire. My fingers moved as if guided by the very stars themselves, injecting chaos into the very fabric of their suppressed networks. Oh, watch this, I chuckled, feeding fragments of misinformation, data releasing like ashes to the wind. As I pressed the final key, a rush of exultation surged through me. Oh, there's nothing left they can do, I breathed half, mad with exhilaration, pulling away from the console as I turned to make my escape. The weight of liberation thrummed in my blood. Now to make it count, but in the haze of swirling victory, I hadn't anticipated what waited outside those doors. As I stepped through, forcing a grin, my heart sank. There stood a cotter of officers, clearly alerted and waiting. It had become a tactic of hunting, like wolves corralled into instinct, marked prey for bloodlust fueled by desperation. The hands where I can see them, The lead officer barked, firm resolution binding his voice like steel against flesh. I cursed under my breath, instinct roaring as I darted into the shadows of an adjacent corridor. No, no, no. Panic streaked through my heartbeat. In that heartbeat of silence, I calculated my options. I couldn't afford to be taken captive. I had to retreat, to warn Daria and Garrick. Using the opportunity to slip away, I crept behind a stack of crates. Praying the noise of the chaos concealed my motion. Just as I positioned myself into the shadows once more, the quiet, anguished reality crashed like glass. It was no longer certain I could escape. "Take her down," a voice cried, and I risked a glance. Officers charged down the corridor, weapons trained and reaching for the pulse rifles. They were closing in, my breathing quickened, cold metal forcing its weight into my chest. The instinct for survival kicked in as the world narrowed down. With no option left, I spun on my heel as adrenaline pounded through me. "Get back!" I shouted, flinging crates aside in a desperate attempt to create an exit space. Arcs of energy began to crackle from their rifles as I bolted around a nearby structure, scrambling for a path out. I heard the roar of blaster fire ignite behind me, ripping through my focus, panic stealing the air from my lungs as I felt heat singe against the edge of my arm. It tore through euphoria like fragility beneath overwhelming force, striking a hunger for survival deeper than the embers of chaos. They were not just hunting me, they were closing the distance, and an unsettling certainty twisted in my mind. Daria, Garrick. Panic elicited my voice. I had to warn them. I tore through corridors, darting desperately in angular paths, unsure how close the backlash had come. Daria and Garrick were tackling their own battles. I could feel it in the pulse of distant explosions pulsing in sync with my anxiety. I squeezed between walls, flinging myself deep into the shadows, desperately seeking an escape route. Just as the officers began to surround me, I caught a glimpse of a faint exit beyond the crates, a flicker of daylight beckoning me through the chaos. Well, I'm almost there. I gritted my teeth, sprinting with renewed vigor, determined to reach that fleeting light, the echoes of freedom taunting me as desperation surged. Through the veil of darkness, I broke into the open air, gasping as dawn surrounded me. The forge hovered nearby, flickering light offering sanctuary as I threw myself toward it. Wrenched open, I scrambled inside, breathing hard, panic threatening to erase the illusion of victory I had carried with me. Go, get us out of here," I yelled, spilling into the command seat, fingers already dialing the engines. "What happened?" Daria's voice sliced through the chaos, concern etched within her features, accompanied by Garrick at the controls. "Did you get the data?" "They were waiting for me," I gasped, scarcely processing what escaped my lips, only attuned to the sickening weight of fading security. "We have to leave now," but as I felt it, the steady hum of engines, Saren was already far more prepared than we had anticipated. "Contacts incoming," Garrick shouted, voice laced with urgency as lights blinked in rapid succession across the panel before us. "The Syndicate's hunting us down." "Daria, lock our position behind the asteroid belt," I commanded, pulse roaring in my ears, the panic rising beneath adrenaline as I powered the engines to their upper limits. As chaos erupted like a tempest around us, and we bolted deeper into the void of the asteroid fields, dread followed, saturating every heartbeat. We had fractured their security, disrupted their resources, but at what cost? The visceral symptoms of inevitability churned beneath the surface. There were no guarantees we could evade the fallout from this moment. "Hang on," Garrick firmed his grip, thrusting us into evasive maneuvers as we weaved through the narrow trajectories, adrenaline surging through us like raw energy. The ghosts of celestial shadows threatened against us like silent predators clad in metallic brilliance, their pursuit relentless. "And not now," Daria screamed, the echoes of near misses mingling with alive bursts, erupting around us as I maneuvered through knots of the asteroid maze, the debris offering both concealment and peril. I could feel the hair on my skin rising, dread clawed beneath my breath, but the roaring urgency of freedom spurred embers of defiance toward flight. "We'll make it," I murmured, forcing the words to shield against the swirling storms of fear. "Align the main thrusters, we're pushing through," Garrick commanded, steadied reflections unwavering at the helm. But Saren had prepared and anticipated every stroke of error, our risks playing against time and ingenuity. As we stormed through the dense shadows, sudden cries filled the air. More ships dropped from the void, like reapers harvesting the fragments of our lost resolve. "Brace for impact, they're right on us," Daria cried, tension snapping like strands of hope frayed. "The catalyst burn," I yelled, resolve strengthening as I locked eyes with Garrick. Now, the thrusters roared to life beneath us, the ship jolting in a sharp arc, as explosive bursts erupted all around, sending shockwaves through the ether as we weaved through the chaos. The moment hung suspended like an eternal breath. Stretch, each moment pulling tighter as we broke free from the dense shroud encasing our escape. Our engines flared with brilliant light, illuminating dark expanse across the void. We cut through a passage fabricated just outside the path of pursuit, the sheer audacity becoming our fervent lifeline. Panting hard from exertion, I stole a glance at Daria and Garrick, mirthful shock igniting vibrancy within me. But did we just outmaneuver them? I gasped between labored breaths, heart hammering against the unbearable excitement of sheer survival. Barely, Garrick shot back, shaking the remnants of the conflict, glancing over his shoulder as he adjusted the ship's trajectory. But let's not count our victory just yet. Shadows highlighted our ordeal, revelation smoothing tension, as we glided over space roads of vision met widening alternatives. Adversities molded instead of defining us, each fractured moment holding anticipation that we had stoked into life. "Saren will regroup," Daria breathed, but the power in her tone belied doubt. "But we have to move swiftly. Yes, we push forward. We extract every ounce of value while we still hold opportunity," I said, voice steely and unwavering. "Today was a setback, but we aren't done. We're building again." As we burrowed into the mystifying expanses of the asteroids, we embraced the familiar charge of companionship that charged the atmosphere around us. "Everyone knows we've tasted conflict together," I thought aloud, recalling that every step forward forges bonds, grounding us in the shared pursuit of hope and freedom. A relentless journey against the shadows of tyranny. Hands touched in solidarity, dreams igniting as the stars glimmered brightly ahead. The rebellion surged beneath our feet, our legacy igniting and intertwining like cosmic tendrils, determined to rise anew. Our next course lay within the roads ahead. We would rise and fight anew. Nothing more than embers ready to spark a fire against the night. Tension hung in the air like a thick fog as the forge glided silently through the orbital belts of the brownstone sector. Days had passed since our narrow escape from Saren's enforcers, yet the turmoil still clung to every darkened corner of our minds. We had dispersed and rallied our forces, but even in the cold vanities of space, the memories of chaos haunted us, casting shadows over our newfound resolve. "Garrick, can you get a status from the ground crew?" I asked, gripping the console, eyes darting between the undulating shimmer of asteroids. The looming threat of Saren's retaliation pressed heavily against our collective breath, challenging everything we fought for. We had disrupted their supply chains, but Saren was no ordinary adversary. He had resources and ruthless ferocity at his disposal. With a communications shutdown, reaching them has been tricky. Garrick replied, brow furrowed in concentration as he toggled through external feeds. Tension seeped into his voice. The cracks in our confidence began to spread. "But I'll keep trying until we have updates. I can't believe we haven't lost anyone on this mission yet." Daria leaned against the wall, her fingers tapping a rhythmic dance on her thigh. "They'll regroup and hit us where it hurts. We have to prepare our defenses for when they do. If they do." Her voice faltered slightly, revealing the cracks beneath the determined surface. "Well, you're right. We have to establish a stronghold, a staging ground," I said, the stirring of inspiration igniting within me. "If we can secure the old factory installations on Saturn's moon, it'll provide us both an outpost and a launch point for further operations." It resonated with possibilities. The latent industrial structures would bolster manufacturing and repair capabilities, a vital lifeline against encroaching threats. Let's build our battalion, gather the discontented and those who will believe in our cause, I continued. We can use the cover of asteroids to make our approach without alerting Saren's fleet. Daria pushed herself off the wall, intensity sparking in her eyes. I'll reach out to scattered contacts. If we can get mercenaries, even former Syndicate rebels, we may strengthen our ranks further. She determined, slipping to the side to access her console. Good. I'll handle reinforcing our defenses and coordinating logistics for our move, Garrick affirmed. As they split to their tasks, a shiver of anticipation crawled up my spine. The incessant churn of uncertainty loomed, but we had a chance, a precious ember to fan toward a flame. With each passing hour, the galaxy shifted, shimmering with the potential of revolution. 2 days later, the atmosphere inside the forge brimmed with urgency. Garrick sat at the tactical console, coordinating the gathering of resources from the new recruits' merchants, mechanics, and former Syndicate soldiers, each willing to gamble their lives for a free future. Daria's voice echoed in the distance, harmonizing commands as she rallied the volunteers for training drills. Juno, Garrick boomed, breaking my contemplation. You need to see this. He gestured swiftly to the screen before him, illuminating reports of our movements and the response from Saren's regime. The implications of our last operations were whirling through the data feeds. Admiral Saren has declared an openly aggressive advance, Garrick continued. He's mobilized his main fleet and plans to staunchly reclaim control over the territories we've struck. Where is he attacking? I pressed forward, gut tightening with that instinctual dread we had felt ever since we started this crusade. A Corvid fracture, where Daria and I launched the first counter-offensive. It seems he believes we're still entrenched there and plans to take it back with overwhelming force, Garrick said, fingers flying as data continued to pour in, speculating troop movements and supply routes. Then I swallowed against the weight of our choices. We've got to bait him, pull more forces away from our position before we can be outnumbered. Daria stepped in, narrowing her eyes with clarity. If we create a distraction, a feigned offensive elsewhere, it could lure Saren to commit even more resources. We'll draw him out into the outskirts of the asteroids. He won't see us moving in from the edges until it's too late. With that, the dynamic energy shifted. Ambition washed over us, igniting the embers of our rebellion into a raging fire. Within hours, we'd assembled our information, piecing strategies together, floating in a sea of data. We would draw Saren off his stronghold, making him chase shadows while we prepared our own. The night before our planned distraction, the forge pulsed with readiness. Daria paced the command deck, eyes drifting like open skies across the horizon. What if I fail? The vulnerability broke through her confidence, just audible enough to catch my attention. You won't, I affirmed, stepping closer. We're going to make it. You're a force of nature. I searched her eyes, conviction spilling from my lips. He's lost focus. We're the unpredictable variable he didn't plan for. The chaos we create will scatter his forces like falling stars. Garrick joined us, folding his arms over his chest. I'm ready when you are. Let's do this right. We strategized into the night until dawn crept through. The adrenaline surged deep in my bones, and the time for action had arrived. As we finalized our plans, the atmosphere brimming with a growing camaraderie, we once more felt that weary energy shift, igniting passion. Let's hit them hard when they're blind, I concluded. Then we regroup and strike at his true weak point. With the echo of our resolve still lingering in the air, we gathered together before the assembled crew. Everyone prepared, hearts pounding with anticipation under the glow of impending revolution. Remember, no matter the outcome, we fight for something greater with every breath we take. Solidarity is what sets us apart. I addressed them. Emboldened with that shared truth interweaving through our spirits, we broke apart, pricking ourselves to action. Each crew member took positions in and around the forge, readying to strike through our plotted path toward uncertainty, the vastness of space yawning before us like the chasm of an open heart. As the forge sped through the darkness, Garrison, Daria, and I murmured reassurances among ourselves. In this chaos we may find our footing, I reminded, the currents forging space, born hope in their reflection. Daria nodded, resolve galvanizing beneath uncertainty. We approached the site of our designated offensive, the beauty of the surrounding asteroids grimly juxtaposed by the impending confrontation. With the war preparation buzzing in our hearts like an impending storm, we braced ourselves ready, not for fear, but to reclaim our lives. Upon arrival, we initiated a ruse, sending false signals to Saren's forces about attack formations, masking our true position as we executed our strategic maneuvers. We blended into the asteroid fields, waiting for the moment when Saren's fleet began to mobilize toward the fake report. And now, Garrick shouted, and we struck like lightning, intercepting his fleet amidst the sparks of chaos. Pulses roared to life as weapons lit up the darkness around us, interstellar battles roaring like a ravenous dragon. The cacophony of blaster fire filled the void, embers swirling into cascades of radiant explosions, chaos spilling into the abyss. It felt surreal yet exhilarating as our forces pinned down Saren's surprise, ambiguity refocusing on the strength we never knew we possessed. Push forward, I urged, eyes aflame with passion as we navigated through cascading remnants of their defenses, my heart racing with momentum as we matched force against force. We surrendered the shadows as our forces emerged from hiding, striking, overwhelming the enemy like some primal instinct surged through us. Bright flashes illuminated the battlescape, endless shadows juxtaposed against flickered hopes, and sparks ignited through the annals of time. If success is within reach, I shouted, exhilaration coursing through me, charging my spirit with every volley, every moment converging against the syndicate. Then through the oscillation, fury erupted, bringing more forces than ever expected. Saren, I shouted, the name echoing through the bloodied ether, directing our forces toward the heart of his deceit. But with it, the stakes twisted. Uncertainty settled it into firm resolve. We were determined to take hold of our futures, to stand in defiance against the dark. The flickering stars of hope cutting across the dusk. Where is he? Daria's voice carried through the din, the urgency of our mission throbbing amid the conflict. Follow his corvette markings. They can guide us straight to him. As we directed ourselves toward higher stakes, the tide began to turn. We cut through their ranks like shards of broken light, pressing toward the core where Saren stood. I could feel my heart beat in sync with the rebellion fueling our advance, threads of solidarity crafting within every pulse. There, we stepped within the opalescent control rooms, fortified but trembling with poised energy. Admiral Saren, come out and face your reckoning, I shouted, voice melding with the clangor around me. It was defiance stitched into momentum, our rising spirit in every breath, a die flung spinning into the air. The control center erupted into chaos as soldiers shifted in frozen disbelief. I blinked through the chaos and locked eyes on a flickering figure behind the main panel, cloaked in shadow yet burning with insidious intent. Saren, I snarled, fueled by a rush of adrenaline, the sinews of anger coursing through me. You've drawn this upon yourself. Your greed has fed the fire of rebellion. We will not bow to your tyranny. His gaze cut through the gloom, apprehension mixed with disdain. You think you're clever. This is only the beginning. You're playing with forces far beyond yourself. His voice sliced through the tension, resembling the cracks in his facade. You've underestimated every soul you've governed for far too long, I replied, gripping my weapon tighter, the rush of action pushing against fear. You think we fight for our freedom, we do, for strength now grows from the embers of rebellion because betrayal breeds resignation. Saren scowled, rage clawing at his features, but I was prepared. It was no longer time for hesitation. The moment hung like a fragile bulb waiting to ignite. The tide turned against him as a legion stood behind me, ready for the long-awaited battle. Together, I shouted, rallying our forces, surprised to see my defiance ignite the air like some electric wind, a beckoning chorus to reclamation. With every thrum of defiance, we surged forward, the probe breaking firepower enveloping Saren's fortress as it fought, unyielding against its own judgment. A kaleidoscope of forces surged, rippling and thrumming above the tableau of rebellion blooming into our destiny. Then, as our forces pushed closer toward the core, tension swelled in the air like a drumbeat resonating within the hearts of all present. This moment was ripe for change. The very fabric of our galaxy bent against our resolve as uncertainty shifted to clarity. The truth was clinging only moments away. But at that last moment, the air crackled in despair, rising pulses halted just long enough for fear to seep back in. Fall back. Saren shouted against the pulse of chaos, maneuvering through the proactive elements of his thwarted privilege. The space world around me, agony of confusion clawing through fleeting moments. Do not retreat. I roared back, grasping at the freedom, whispering through every breath. We're coming for you. In that rebellion, desired moment, we pushed to the core. Our forces surged toward completion, and for a moment, trepidation blossomed into possibility. The light burned brighter than darkness, declaring our independence against the twilight. But just as the shattering climax approached, a shockwave rippled through the control room, shaking the very bones of life out from beneath my feet, shocking eyes wide. The light dimmed and flickered. A hasty retreat forged on the storm of uncertainty beckoned from beyond. What was that? Daria cried, instinctively grabbing the edge of the control console. The overhanging alarm blared ominously, and I turned to scream, "It's a trap!" But the words barely formed, eclipsed by the unfolding realization Saren had prepared more than just a singular juggernaut. The moment of clarity shattered around us, fracturing under the weight of realization. Forces converged from beyond that immediate reach, an almighty shadow, a silent storm blurring toward us. A reminder of our shared fragility amidst hard-fought victory. Garrick, my voice cut clear against the damaged veneer, the weight dragging through the energy, suffocating every instinct. Fall back now, we need evacuate. The force is coming will overwhelm us. But before we could grieve the possibility of failure, the control room shuddered like some great beast awakened, the walls quaking with vibrations like war drums leading into endless turmoil, a lifeblood gripping through chaos. Reinforcements are incoming. It's more than we can manage, Garrick confirmed, his voice strained as pixels scrawled against the console in a desperate flurry. Then we can turn the tide, I summarized, rallying forth with a determination more burning and brutal than ever as we pressed forward, determined not to relent. We marched onto the stage of destiny, ready to meet our reckoning. As seconds dripped toward climax, the storm erupted. Swirling chaos drew tight, and as we stood on the precipice of battle, the fires ignited all around. The void threatened to consume us all, the darkest moments coiling so elegantly against the reckoning of our own defeat. But victory would not cower in shadow's reach. In the face of this oncoming storm, we gritted our teeth, ready to face what lay beyond our expectations. Together, we could pull the threads of our destinies into something light and powerful, a rebellion that could splinter the dawn anew. Before me, the fractured stream of allies prepared to bind the cast of fate. Through fear and hope, we would write histories yet to be formed, galaxies waiting to be reclaimed. Our lights were not extinguished, even burned through darkness. A race against time was sparking against the nebulous void we faced. With renewed purpose, we squared our shoulders, hearts beacons against the impending timeout. Operating beneath gaseous suns, awaiting retribution beyond. We would face this together, no matter the fractal unknown. We would challenge a reckoning forged in the heart of every soul yet to soar. And we would be ready. As the cataclysmic blasts of war enveloped the forge in a furious embrace, the moment morphed into a paradox between dread and determination, clarity and chaos. I stood at the helm, guiding my crew into the heart of battle, resolution bubbling wildly within me like a tempest on the brink of explosion. The fate of our rebellion danced precariously on a precipice, swaying between victory and despair. We had endured too much to falter now. Juno, we need to regroup, Garrick shouted, manning the tactical console, his face illuminated by the flickering lights, a mosaic of hope and fear merging seamlessly. Saren's forces are mobilizing all around us, They're trying to trap us in. We won't let that happen. I barked back, adrenaline surging through my veins as I activated the holo map, scanning for any routes we could exploit. My heart raced, and I felt the weight of every soul surrounding me, their trust in our mission, flaring under the storm of uncertainty that threatened to engulf us. Daria, get to that console. I roared, pointing toward the control setup that whispered possibilities beneath layers of fear. If we can tap into their systems, we might grasp some control. Turn this chaos to our advantage. On it, she replied, adrenaline sharpening her focus as she hurried to the terminal. The storm raged outside, violent bombardments shaking the hull, every pulse vibrating with relentless urgency. I could feel it in the air. This was our defining moment, our shot to alter the course of our rebellion. Keep them off me, Daria yelled, fingers flying across the display, engaging what defenses we still possessed while I steered us through the growing confusion and staggering shifts of combat. Just as the reality of battle reached a fever pitch, a wave of reinforcing ships flowed into sight, like spectral banners against the backdrop of tumult. What now? Garrick shouted incredulously. Are those mercenaries? I confirmed breathlessly, glancing outside the cockpit. Elathis must have gathered them after all. We're not alone. People are willing to stand with us. With purpose igniting within me, I directed our ship toward the new arrivals. A haphazard but hopeful gang of fighters off to the side. We need to align, get those fighters on our wing as we move toward Saren's command vessel. Let's break their formation, loading up defensive protocols, Garrick reported as he worked to establish a communications line with the incoming fighters. In that moment, I felt the tendrils of fear coil tightly around my heart, begin to loosen. The invisible ties of camaraderie were building once more, forging our rebellion into an unstoppable force. Juno, I've overridden a few systems, Daria announced, enthusiasm washing through her voice, invigorating the atmosphere. We can establish targeting data against Saren's main fleet. Great, let's signal that to our fighters. I commanded and felt it. The possibilities expanding around us amid the relentless chaos. I was no longer just fighting to survive. We were poised to reclaim everything that had been stripped from us. Setting a course, I guided the forge through the thrumming appendages of the battlefield, a living tapestry of friends and dissenters fighting against tyranny. The renewed fire in my spirit surged like a river breaking free, brazen and fierce. We wouldn't just fight, we would turn the course of battle itself. The chaos mingled around us as Saren's forces thrust into engage, blaster fire illuminating the void that engulfed us. Locking on, Daria confirmed, fingers deftly navigating currents of control. Ready when you are. And now, I hollered back, feeling the vibrations resonate within my core. As the forge lurched into motion, I slipped through the melee, a dance upon flames, as we collided with the Syndicate's forces head on. The first volley erupted across the enemy flank, a cascade of blasts arching through the darkness, bright wings extending across the chaos. As the cacophony roared around us, the forge surged ahead, and I embraced each moment the pulsing adrenaline, the thrill of battle, yielding like a raging current through my veins. I felt a surge of pride knot in my chest as our newly allied forces pressed onward, flank by flank plunging against Admiral Saren's lines. Keep it up. We are breaking through, I cried out, rallying every ounce of strength to urge our allies forward. We dove deeper into the fray, enemy ships popping brightly against the pallor of space, each shot igniting a flicker of miscalculated hope mixed with rage. Daria, can you identify Saren's flagship? I shouted over the clamor, aching to eliminate the head of the snake and diminish the heart of the Union's power. Working on it. She focused, eyes narrowing as she scrolled through data. I can pin its coordinates. Get ready to navigate for a crucial strike. Understood. Garrick, prepare for any evasive maneuvers. I ordered, readying my heart for the chance to deliver a definitive blow against the Syndicate. The ship bucked under another wave of enemy fire, and I tightened my grip on the controls. Ahead, Saren's flagship gleamed defiantly, a dark beacon cutting through the chaos. "There," Daria shouted, her finger pointing at the central monstrous ship, now exposed to our charges. "Right there. Make your move before they can backpedal." I set course like a ribbon trailing through flames, determination suffusing my movements as we cut through the space. Surge of energy spiraling outward. Each bow drawn back against fear acted as connective tissue, binding our resolve. And now, I pressed the launch of torpedoes toward the flagship. The array of energy ignited in a beautiful blossom above the shadows before the force roared, rebounding against the enemy vessel. We felt the G-force jolt as the forge clamped down against inertia, and amid the throes of chaos emerged fragments of calm clarity. The flagship's defenses buckled under the pressure, flickers of resistance crumbling around it as we pushed forward. "Push in, fight with all you have, we can outlast them," I bellowed, feeling the reverberation of our fear curve under the weight of prompt persistence. We glided onward, my heart pounding against the fabric of uncertainty as we pressed deeper into danger. With every second, our strikes and maneuvers began to take shape. We had transformed the battlefield from difficult odds into a dance of destructible chaos. Suddenly, a distant explosion echoed sharp and resonant, jerking me from the thrill of the moment to the reality surrounding us. "Oh, what was that?" I demanded, glancing around the control room, studying the monitor's flashing reports of internal damage that rushed across screens. "Saren's troops are retaliating," Garrick responded, furiously manipulating the console. "We've got to stabilize, prepare for evasive maneuvers." Just as I seized the controls to guide our path, an alarming jolt struck the forge, sharp and violent shrapnel spun through our surroundings like fireflies dimming against the void, and the ship shuddered to its core. I braced myself against the console, heart racing with urgency. "Hold on," I yelled, but the shock of impact swirled chaotic energy around us, pulling tighter into a shroud of panic. I fought against the horror blooming in my chest while desperately activating the thrusters, forcing motion. "Daria, can you get any readings? Status?" I turned back toward her, adrenaline shooting through my veins. "I'm getting feedback," she screamed as chaos thrummed through the control room. "They're targeting our engines. If we don't stabilize soon, we'll lose control." Garrick moved without hesitation, commands clear against his features as he shouted to the crew. "Divert all power to stabilizers. We need to keep this ship from tipping over." The urgency refocused my drive, stirring every depth I drew from our rebellion. "We can't give in. We use their weapons against them. Those who seek control will bend. We will not falter." The words surged like flames against gale winds, pushing through the panic around us. Garrick slammed a hand against the console. "Stabilizers engaged. Keep your bearings steady. Daria, what's the status of our allies?" "They're still engaged, holding the line. But it's weakening," she grounded, an emotional weight heavy in her voice. "We need to maintain momentum, or we'll lose our position altogether." Determined to keep our rebel army in the fray, I guided the forge back into a pulse of momentum, sending shockwaves through the remaining forces. Each successful impact pulled us forward while the chaos continued to encircle our combatants, merging back toward the center. "We have to initiate a focused counter-offensive. It's our chance," I said, resolute, linking my mind to the unfolding tapestry flourishing before us. "If we can penetrate deeper, we can seize landing ports and set the stage for a final confrontation." Daria's eyes lit with realization. "We can capitalize on the chaos, turn the suppression into liberation." "Exactly. Then we create a combined path to break Saren's hold," I concluded, feeling the intensity shift. "Restore our communications. Let them know we're moving in." With newfound cooperation flowing through us, I pulled on the forge's control, shoving toward the expansive chaos. Set upon merging forces gathered around the command vessel, striking unison against aberration. "Hold on to hope. Let us rebuild what once was," I shouted as we surged past the wreckage, joining our newfound allies in confrontation against Saren's forces, this time not for our survival alone, but for the reclamation of all that we had lost. As the battle raged on, I plunged into the thick of it without hesitation, the explosions and debris flying around us like rapid fire retribution. Closing the gap, I felt the weight of our purpose binding us, the hope of tomorrow evolving within our grasp. Then, like a shooting star across the void, our collective strength began to reshape the very fabric of resistance, the realization that we were dancing toward the cusp of history, unfurling in our hands. "Daria, Garrick, it's time," I commanded, a powerful storm of survival and perseverance anchoring around us. "The next step lies with us. We fight to spark a rebellion that shapes the very cosmos." With renewed momentum, the forge clashed amidst the tumult, the joy of resistance illuminated beneath nebulous skies, fear slowly shifting to unwavering resolve, gleaming through our unified forces. The feeling surged deeper, entwined like strands of starlight that ignited an unquenchable flame in the dark. As we pressed toward the heart of strength, resisting order amid the void, we reclaimed that which had been lost, our very essence as warriors, souls reborn through the fires of rebellion. The remnants of the battle stretched ahead, pulsating with energy, the flagship of Saren beckoning, so close, yet fraught with peril. Yet as we surged forth, Saren was not merely a player we sought to defeat. He was the embodiment of our fears and the personification of our past. Soon his reign of sorrow would know no bounds, and we, the children of rebellion, would carve a path of liberation so fierce it would echo against the stars. Fate awaited, and the rebellion surged, ready to be birthed anew. Together, I shouted one last time, echoing through the very core of our mission, hearts beating as one against the dark, ready against all odds to spark the tides of destiny and plunge into the endless depths of victory at hand. The remnants of the battlefield bore witness to the storm we had conjured, each starship ablaze with the echoes of our struggle against Saren's syndicate. Forge rocked gently in the aftermath, our systems humming with a feverish energy, even as the brutal cacophony of war resonated through the dark ether around us. The air in the control room crackled with tension, no longer merely fraught with fear, but charged with the exhilarating pulse of victory just within our grasp. "Status report," I called urgently, eyes scanning the displays filled with the arcane lights of battle damage and allies' communications. "Consolidated forces are holding well. We've retained control over 3 key landing ports," Garrick stated, his voice steady amidst the chaos as he wrested back control of our sector's deteriorating systems. "But Saren's reserves are still in play. We can't let our guard down yet." Daria's fingers flew across the console next to him, her focus unwavering. "I'm receiving updates from our allied ships. They're ready to launch an offensive to corner any remaining syndicate forces. They've also requested immediate intel on enemy positioning." "Good," I nodded, adrenaline fueling my drive. "We're not done yet. We'll capitalize on this window of opportunity while Saren is still reeling. His forces won't recover so easily. Gather tactical data from the operational feed. We must anticipate his next move." Just as the rush of commands began to settle the splintering nerves in my spine, the ship shuddered again, an ominous reminder of the feisty encroachment of Saren's remaining fleet. "We're compromised," Garrick shouted, swiftly flicking switches and adjusting our trajectory to evade the incoming fire. "Saren is rallying. His retaliatory strike is imminent. And not if we can help it," I shouted back, vision narrowing with focus as desperation coursed through me. "Daria, redirect the remaining power to our forward shields. We'll have to hold until we can reposition for a calculated strike." The tremors of a nearby explosion echoed ominously, and for a fraction of a second, I caught a glimpse of dread reflected across Garrick's face. The resolve in the air hung palpable, pressing against my skin. We were nearing a precipice where a single miscalculation could tilt the balance against us. "Speed is our ally now," I urged. "We reinforce, infiltrate Saren's command line. Almost done," Daria intoned, her breath half a prayer as her fingers danced across panels, desperately seeking their binary counterparts. "It will re-establish our targeting network shortly. Hold fast," I rasped, feeling a fierce compulsion swell in me. the weight of destiny gripping tight around my heart. A defining breath amid the chaos that swirled about us. Once we breach their command channel, we'll pull every piece of intel from them we can muster. This isn't merely about defeating Saren anymore. We're reclaiming our place in the galaxy. The din of our momentary victory vibrated through me as pieces of chaos began to align. I could sense the growing determination imbued within every member of our crew, like stars converging to forge a constellation. A burgeoning rebellion against the oppressive night. Multiple contacts incoming, Garrick called out. A full squadron, reinforcements sent by Saren. He's not giving up without a fight. What now? Daria huffed, brow knitting intensely as the screens flared red with urgent warnings. Arrange on enemy targets, I commanded, fingers curling tightly around the console as I willed the forge to evade an incoming stream of plasma fire, lighting up the space before us. We'll maneuver toward their flank, pinch them between our allies and ourselves, rerouting power to engines, Garrick asserted, and as the ship bucked and swung like a dancer caught in a storm, I felt the electricity of our shared resolve ignite above the fear. Set coordinates to engage. Prepare to counter. The world around us blurred as the energy spurred through our ship, moved with ferocity and grace. The forge twisted through the theater of fire, dancing along the edge of victory, drawing fire from Saren's forces like moths to an incandescent flame. Engaging thrusters, Daria's voice flared with urgency. The ship responded to her will, darting away from the onslaught while allowing our allies to pin down the advancing syndicate forces. Come on, we can do this. Focus on those lead fighters. Move us to intercept. I shouted, anticipation electrifying the air as I submerged into the rhythm of war. The aesthetic of battle became both visceral and captivating, urging and propelling our ship through the cosmic battlefield, unfolding around us like an epic saga in real time. Daria flipped switches, channeling reserves of latent energy into our weapons as I plunged the forge into the swarm of Saren's fighters. Blaster fire erupted, streaks of brilliance painting the miasma of darkness that engulfed us. The pulse of our determination mirrored through every strike against the fading remnants of tyranny. Take them out, I commanded, voice ringing with fervor as our weapons locked and loaded, and surged toward the enemy. Crimson blasts cascaded against the night. Our fires bloomed like petals casting light against the tendrils of shadow clutching at our resolve as we bolstered our charge against the Dominion attempting to suppress us. This dance of fate somehow felt like breathing life back into a suppressed flame. I glimpsed fleeting lights fade in and out through explosions, our piloting daring, filled with purpose. And with every explosive moment clashing against darkness, I felt our collective spirit shift, tightly wound beneath the silken veneer of fear and anticipation, urging us on. Within moments, Saren's commander directed their flickering line's forces scrambling to realign as we pushed forward. Closer and closer, we drove them back toward an impending collapse. No longer were we the hunted. We had become the hunters the arrows of revolution loosed into battle, forged in purpose and drawn to victory. Break formation, Daria commanded, focusing power on the forward shields before firing off pulses of laser, illuminating the growing darkness scarred by ignited hope. We're breaking through. A cacophony of explosions echoed through the void as I pulled the forge into a steep dive, narrowly avoiding return fire while propelling us toward our new enemies. The ship shook alive beneath me, reinforcing my beliefs as fear danced with exhilaration in the chaotic beauty of battle. I felt an unfathomable surge as I steered toward the exposed flank of Saren's flagship, blaring against the darkness, a cultural rebellion poised as an arrow against the night. Prepare for boarding, I bellowed, gripping the controls with renewed fervor, heart racing with every pulse of energy as we cut through the underbelly of his defenses. This is our opportunity. Gathering our strength, I fixated firmly on my targets. The mechanics of our operation danced like painted flames below us. Every coordinated movement sung through the perils and joys of interstellar battle. A jump into the breach hit them hard. Garrick warned as we dropped behind a barrage of enemy ships assaulting our defenses. The forge surged forth a relentless tide awakening, spinning and folding back into chaos like a tempest blasting open the barricades. Unleashing boarding craft, Daria announced, raising the spirits like a battle cry that rekindled sparks of hope. With luminescent power unraveling before us, we blasted toward Saren's command deck. The heart of his offenses, merging battle lines between the distinctions of who we once were and who we were becoming. After navigating through chaos unscathed, we prepared to unleash our final few pattern strikes, daring to reclaim our rightful power in the galaxy. Daria, Garrick, get our allies to the command deck. Others are breaking through. I roared, bringing my voice over the din. As the forces of Saren began to crumble, the joined efforts of rebels surged forth. Tales retold through the might of comradeship resonated on that infamous brink. Together, we could overcome this threshold. Defeat would not hold sway over us any longer. We darted into the shadows as we fired another volley, the anticipation beaming bright and undeniable as we merged our hearts as one beneath the smoke of explosions. "What's the situation on the command center?" I asked, anxious energy coursing through me as the forge rocked against another blast. "The outer defenses are crumbling. We're prepping to breach their command channel," Garrick confirmed, conviction shining within his fiery eyes. "Then get ready," I replied firmly, my heart thundering in my chest. "Let's show Saren that we will not bow." Send the signal. It's time to reignite our hope. The air in the command center crackled with tension, each fleeting heartbeat a reminder of the struggle we fought together as one united force. As we plunged back into the chaotic heart of the Syndicate's empire, battle ran through our veins. That palpable energy birthed in our hearts no longer purely fought for survival. It sang of vengeance and reclamation, a chance to turn our destiny into something magnificent. And so we surged onward, united in spirit and faith, wielding the power of discontent like a blade, forged anew in the fires of rebellion, ready to carve our names into the fabric of history, prepared to face Admiral Saren and reclaim our purpose among the stars. As we charged toward the command center, my heart thrummed with an intense certainty. We were no longer mere players caught in a dark plot. We were architects of our fate, filled with light and fervor, ready to be the authors of tomorrow's destiny amidst cosmic shadows clinging close behind. With each lurch and thrust toward our goal, we built an emissary of freedom shimmering brightly within our grasp, a testament to a galaxy yearning to break free, the rise of rebellion countering the shadows of tyranny. We would reclaim our stars, and nobody would stand in our way. We were set to rise, embers igniting a fierce fire as we stood resolute, ready to snuff out darkness and reclaim a cosmos that had long been denied the spark of hope. Together, we would reach for the dawn. As the forge surged through the remnants of conflict, momentum thrummed beneath our feet. We were a vessel of hope, slicing through the chaos birthed of shadows, ready to reclaim the light that had long been shrouded in darkness. The command center of Admiral Saren pulsated ahead, a fortress brimming with his malice, yet trembling under the weight of our collective will. My heart raced in time with the pulsating warnings cascading across the console. Each flicker of red ignited my resolve anew. "Activate all boarding crafts," I commanded, adrenaline lacing my voice as we converged toward the heart of our rebellion. "Join forces with our allied ships. Let's breach that bastion," preparing to execute plan, Garrick affirmed, eyes glinting fiercely in the low light as he flicked switches, a flurry of calculated commands pouring forth between us. The roar of cheers and encouragement echoed in my ears, mingling with the whispers of those who had fought alongside us, an ever-growing chorus fueling the incessant desire for liberation. And then we were in motion. The forge weaved through the sprawl of enemy vessels, drawing fire like moths to a flame, darting around their confusion with a fervor that sent shivers racing through every joint in my body. The corridors of the enemy's flagship lay ahead, the linchpin of all we had fought to dismantle. "We keep pushing, we can't relent now," I shouted, my voice threading through the cacophony, beckoning our forces onward. Bolstered by camaraderie, we surged toward the command deck, fingers twitching in anticipation. An electric pulse of convergence swelled beneath our intentions. Disabling enemy defenses, Daria yelled, fingers racing against the console as she prepared to breach their systems. Almost in, her determination shone, determination ignited deep within her fiery spirit. "Got it!" Opening the plasma gates. The command room bore witnesses to our relentless advance, shadows morphing into silhouettes against our incoming tide. Each corridor pulsating with the urgency of change. We pressed through the blaring alarms and frantic voices, pushing aside uncertainty until it dulled against our unwavering momentum. Enemy reinforcements arriving. Garrick shouted as we fought to penetrate the depths of the command center. "We have to neutralize the main defenses before they can regroup." "Let me handle that," I replied, a fierce intensity igniting within me. "Daria, you and Garrick clear a path, hold the line." Without waiting for a response, I charged forward, cutting through the thrumming chaos toward the command room doors, the heart of Saren's empire. Saren's arrogance hung heavily in the air as I breached the threshold, flickering lights splashing against the imposing forms gathered before the consoles. Officers standing at attention under the grim shadow of their master. The cold bite of fear mixed with exhilaration surged through my veins, electrifying my senses as I called forth my own conviction, ready to confront the face of oppression that had long haunted our people. "Admiral Saren," I bellowed, the name slicing through the tension shifting to anticipation, a confrontation nearing its climax. "Your reign ends here. You can't hold back the tide of rebellion any longer." His icy gaze fixed upon me, contempt simmering beneath the surface like a coiled serpent. "You believe you can come here, speak those words, and obliterate everything I've built." His voice dripped with condescension. "You're but a mere child playing with fire. Fire burns brightly against shadows," I retorted, my voice unwavering before his derision. "And I've come to show you just how brightly it can burn." As I faced him, a surge of my allies burst into the room behind me, the tide of our rebellion cresting like a wave against every structure within the command deck, engulfing it in our resolve. "Oh, we're the flame you can't extinguish, Saren. You've underestimated our fight for far too long. We will not relent." Daria rallied behind me, ushering soldiers into position, charging with newfound strength ignited from the embers of battle. "You have lost before this day. We will break you." Uncertain murmurs and shifting bodies crackled among Saren's officers, wavering as they faced rebellion, a hurricane of force bearing against them, leaving them no refuge. "Deploy the defense systems," Saren barked, voice cracking against the tense atmosphere. "Hold the line." Gasps echoed as our forces took up position. Garrick rallied our allies into formation, melding the threads of rebellion flowing like a tapestry, weaving itself in luminous contrast to the dark reality Saren sought to maintain. "No," I yelled defiantly, feeling the momentum shift around us. "No more games, Saren. You will pay for every life you've taken and every dream you've crushed." The realization dawned upon me as I met Saren's steely stare. The weight of our journey burned brightly in that moment. Everything we waged and dared to believe surged through me, fighting for our futures blossoming with promise and freedom ripped from the jaws of darkness. With a swift motion, Saren reached for his weapon, but barely drew it before I lunged forward, pressing against the chaos, blocking his motion, and in that fraught instant chaos erupted like fireworks in the night. The outer panel blazed to life, our allies surged, and I felt the world narrow around us, a singular moment caught between action and reaction. "Take aim," I shouted, and as blaster fire erupted between Saren and his remaining forces, the very fabric of fate intertwined with our rebellion, striking chords that harmonized perfectly with the hopes and dreams we bore deep within our souls. "A push," Daria screamed, feeling the might of our collective fury roar through her as we pressed forward against the remnants of Saren's defenses. Blasts surged ahead, reverberating through the air, the tempest of battle rolling onward as our forces advanced. With renewed fervor, I clashed against Saren, our weapons locked in a frenzied dance, sparks igniting between our bodies. It was chaos fearlessness against oppression, passion blazing like an open inferno. Everything we held sacred surged through me, the lives lost, the dreams shattered, the breath of those who had followed us into battle. "You'll die with the flickers of your rebellion," Saren shouted, his voice barely concealing the horror beneath the bravado. "I'll die in freedom, not shackles," I snarled back, bringing unyielding force to our clash, fury forged from everything we stood against surging through me, an unbridled force roaring against the darkness. As the dust billowed around us, I felt the gravity of our histories binding with present moments, the rebellion that had bloomed in the flames of our past, now fortified into a future worth fighting for. The rest of the battleground echoed beneath our momentum. Our forces rallied with every surge, blending the chaos of combat into beautiful connections, pulsing against the dimming light. Security forces crumbled around Saren, chaos consuming the room. A glimmer of how easily authority could be bent when met with unyielding devotion. And now, I shouted to my allies, and as Saren faltered, absorbed in our fury, our teams surged forward. A chorus of weapons sang against the harsh linings of darkness, thundering blasts cutting through the dimness like metal against flesh, shaking the very core of Saren's hold. "No, you will not take this from me," Saren roared, his desperation anchored in the cries of rage echoing within the space. But there was something fragile about his eyes. Beneath bravado lay the remnants of a tyrant caught off guard, his empire fracturing beneath the weight of impulse. A victory belongs to those who dare to fight for it. I rallied back, shifting stride, pressing through joint motions alongside my allies, igniting the spirit that surged between us, readying for the decisive blow against tyranny that had plagued our galaxy for so long. A final surge of action broke through the tension as we stormed Saren's throne, the laughter of rebellion splintering through the air, a chorus of demands echoing through the chaos of battle as resounding triumph burst around us. The moment of convergence, the rebellion had swelled into something unforgettable, unbreakable. With a deft maneuver, I seized my blaster, charging toward Saren as he stumbled back. "You may have tried to snuff our flames, but you will never extinguish our fire." The moment stretched, suspended in time as I stared at him, rage mingling with sorrow for those we had lost to his tyranny. And finally, I sensed it, the heartbeat of the universe syncing with my own, the resolve of generations igniting a fervor, invisible yet electrifying, the unfurling flame of rebellion reclaiming its legacy amid all odds. "This is for the fallen," I shouted, and as I pulled the trigger, the light erupted, an ethereal flame illuminating the shadows of oppression, retribution cascading forth like liquid light. The ground rumbled as explosions echoed in the distance, reverberating with every heartbeat, converging upon the command room where time and space fused beneath the weight of action. A kaleidoscope of dreams, sustained in the intensity of the moment, broke free. "The victory is ours," I cried, the sensation of renewal blooming fiercely in the echoing aftermath, shards of glass fizzling against the burnt canvas of our fight, claiming every ounce of hope within. The dark majesty of Saren's command room began to fade around me, shadows lifting away. The rebellion glimmered bright and unyielding, an eternal testament to lives reclaimed. We had won, but the war wasn't solely won through battle. It would live on in the hearts of those who fought courageously, a legacy spun upon the burning embers of our past, carried into the promise of tomorrow. Together, we fought to restitch the fabric of our galaxy, unyielding against the darkness that threatened to engulf us. The rebellion had risen anew, the spark liberated from chains of oppression. Stars awakened, fanning flames against the bleakness that had subdued us for far too long. With the remnants of the Legion still humming in the air, we turned as one. The galaxy awaited, filled with potential to be established anew. The echoes of our victory would reverberate through the stars, leaving a mark upon history that none could erase. As the forge swayed gently amid the cosmic ocean, we set our sights onward, embracing our future. A rebellion reborn, intertwined with hope glimmering like stars dusted across the night sky. And together, into the unknown, we would ultimately shine brightly.